Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy National Dog Day. I hope you guys got to treat your pets to something fun today. I got to spend today at National Harbor watching the Pompeo family dogs performing, and they are traveling with the Universal Soul Circus, and they are hosting shows now through Labor Day. So we posted a story earlier today, and that has a link where you can actually go purchase tickets on National Harbor's website or through Ticketmaster. So go click away. Tickets are available every day until 8 p.m. And again, shows are going now through Labor Day weekend. So now for ZTV tonight. Tonight is another Make It Alexandria with Alyssa Kovach of Alexandria Makers Market. She welcomes Christina and Jason of the Alexandria Honey Company. They make their own honey from scratch, so bees, hives, the whole shebang. And we will get to see some of these hives. We'll get to see some of the fresh honey that comes from these hives and some photos tonight. And we'll get to hear their story about how they started raising bees. And let's welcome Alyssa, and it'll be a sweet show.
Hi, Grace. Thank you so much. Happy Thursday, everybody. And yes, this is Make It Alexandria, where I get to show off all of our amazing local makers that are here, right here in Alexandria. And I'm really, really excited to welcome Christina and Jason and get all the buzz about their Alexandria Honey Company. And so without further ado, I will have Grace bring on Christina and Jason. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
How are you guys doing? Oh, of course, of course. I am so excited to get to talk to you guys, to learn more about Alexandria Honey Company. And so, would you guys just give us a little bit of the backstory of how this all came to be?
Sure. We're Christina and Jason Bruegger. We've been married for 11 years. We have two kids, and we got bees about 4 years ago. It was just something we've been interested in doing for a while. It was a fun new project, or at least I thought it would be. So I took a class just to get started. We started off with one hive. The first year our bees didn't make it, so we started again the next year, and then slowly over time, maybe not so slowly, but we have expanded. We now have, I think, 8 hives at the moment, but that number goes up and down a little bit, just depending on circumstances. So we realized this year, as we were gearing up for honey season, that we were going to have far too much honey, that more than we could give away, eat, or do anything with. So we decided to start our company. So Alexandria Honey Company was formed just a few months ago.
Well, that's so exciting. Congratulations. I love that, first of all, that your beekeeping journey is still semi-fresh and a little bit of a new experience, but that the business side of this is really brand new. So tell me how then, in that span of just a few years, what's happening kind of behind the scenes that we don't see, that you go from one hive to now having 8 or so, and you're at the point where you can really kind of mass produce?
Well, partly it was just getting comfortable with it. We were a little hesitant to take on too much when we first got started, so we thought,
Mhm.
oh, we'll just get one. I was also pregnant at the time, so we didn't want to overdo it. Um, and it was a lot, and it's sort of trial by fire, because you're like, oh, it's beekeeping all well and good until you open up that hive and you realize that you are surrounded by literally tens of thousands of stinging insects, and even with the equipment, it can be a little intimidating. So we just gradually got more comfortable with it over time. It started off as my project, although Jason was always very supportive and he was the one who would build the equipment for me, but I was the actual beekeeper. But then as our kids have gotten just a little bit older and are able to entertain themselves for a while so that both of us can go out into the bee yard, Jason has gotten much more involved in the hands-on part of the beekeeping. And then just having 2 of us, it's allowed us to expand. We also, just a natural thing that happens with bees that no one really tells you, is your hives multiply pretty quickly. Um, Bees are prone to swarming, which basically means the queen decides that she and a bunch of bees are going to leave and go find a new home. And that's not something you want to happen in an urban environment, because the home they might find might be on the side of your neighbor's house, or, in, an empty wheelbarrow or just any place that they view as, a nice home. So what you have to do is take those bees before they swarm and put them in a new hive. So now, your hives quickly multiply. If you have 2, now you have 4, and then they become 8, and it grows quickly. And so between those two impulses, I guess both of us working the bees and also just this natural process of bees multiplying, we have grown pretty quickly.
Forgive me if this is an ignorant question, but I don't know the answer. Do you have one queen, or does each hive have its own queen? What's that hierarchy look like?
So each of our hives has a queen. There are instances where we have hives that are queenless if we're trying to expand the apiary. If we want to have some extra queens on hand, you do create what's called a nucleus colony or a nuke. And it's just essentially a smaller colony of bees. And when they start out, they are queenless, and we set them up to raise their own queen. But for the majority of our hives, they are all queen right, meaning that they all have a queen inside that is laying eggs and doing her job to expand the size of the colony.
Very interesting. So is there any issue with proximity, or everybody's happy?
Yeah, no issues with proximity. Our hives can be quite close to each other, and that's pretty standard. The bees know their home. There is something called drift, where the bees can occasionally drift into the wrong hive, but for the most part, they know where they're going. They know they know where their home is at, and they know the scent of their queen. So they orient themselves when they come out of the hive. The forager bees do an orientation flight when they come out for the first time, to know where they're at, and they're pretty good at finding their home. There's a rule: if you're going to move a hive, you need to move it less than, I think, 3 feet or more than 3 miles. Just because they know where they live, and you can goof them up if you move their hive just a little bit away. They might not find their way back home.
Interesting. I wanted to back up a little bit even further. Please forgive me. But Christina, what was that initial interest or spark that made you even like, let's go take a beekeeping class?
I've always been interested in making things, and he laughs because he's used to my crazy schemes. So saying, hey, we should get bees, I don't think was that much of a surprise to him. I've made kombucha. I've dabbled in making yogurt. We had a very short run with cheese.
Actually, my homemade cheese press is sitting right next to us right now.
We garden. So it's just sort of fit in with the sort of lifestyle we have. I think it's interesting to know where your food comes from and how things are made. And so this was just a natural extension of that interest. And if we could figure out a way to have chickens on our property, we'd have that too. So we'd have our little homestead right here in Alexandria.
I think that there's this huge movement about this urban homesteading. And so is there any perhaps concern from your neighbors about your hives, or are they fairly
story for you? So we have awesome neighbors. We've had no complaints from any of our neighbors. We do keep them supplied in honey throughout the year if they need it. But last year we had new neighbors come into the neighborhood. And we had not met them yet officially. And it was the springtime, and we had a hive that was a bit on the cranky side. And they decided, like Christina was mentioning before, they decided to swarm. So that's where the queen left and took. This was a fairly large swarm, so it was upwards of maybe 20 to 30,000 bees with her. And they decided that the first spot that they were going to stop on their journey was the second story above our neighbor's garage on their house. And normally, a swarm isn't too bad because the bees, before they swarm, they load up on honey. So they're usually pretty full and pretty happy and docile. And beekeepers will often say you can work swarms without protective gear on. And that was not the case with these bees. They were very nasty and angry and mean bees. And Christina and I had to get a ladder and we had to go knock on our neighbor's door that we had yet to meet and say, "Hi, we're your new neighbors. Welcome to the neighborhood. Just to let you know, you have about 30,000 honeybees on the side of your house right now. We will get them off of your house, but you might not want to come around the side of your house for an hour or two." And so, with boxes in hand and equipment on, we shimmied up a ladder and brushed the bees into boxes and carried them back onto our property. And it took the better part of a few hours. I think we were supposed to go on a date. Actually, our kids were off somewhere at babysitters or whatnot, and we were supposed to go out on a date for lunch. And that got preempted by spending a few hours scraping bees off the side of our neighbor's house to try to get them back in our yard. So that was pretty. That was pretty exciting, and they were awesome about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, no problem." They were very understanding about that. But yeah, no, we haven't. We've never had any issues with our neighbors, and they've all been very cool about us having bees. And we keep them in the backyard. So if you were to come past our house, most people would never see the hives or know that we have bees. And throughout the year, bees' temperaments can naturally fluctuate. Right now is the time of year when bees can actually be a little bit more on the cranky side because there's not as much nectar coming into the hive. They call it the dearth, and it happens in this kind of the August time frame around here. But most of the time, the bees are pretty chill. They don't bother you too much unless you step on one. And yeah, our neighbors they all think it's a pretty cool thing, and they like when they get the honey from us as well.
Oh, well, of course, that's always the best part, the risk reward, right? But of course, I'm sure you've seen there's kind of this TikTok trend about beekeeping. And so would you maybe kind of walk us through it for those maybe who haven't seen this? It's one particular person, but I think other people are trying to replicate where she's just kind of scooping up, no protection, no gear, and just kind of, handling the bees as, freely as she'd care for. Is that is that real life or is that a social media stunt?
I think in real life, most people wear some level of protection. Lots of beekeepers do either use their bare hands or they'll wear very thin gloves just because it does give you a better feel. Gloves make you a little bit clumsier. You're more likely to crush bees. You can be much more gentle using your bare hands. You are going to get stung though, so you have to be okay with that. And I think you somewhat get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think just going completely bare is somewhat of a social media stunt. I also think it's somewhat misleading, and because I know who you're talking about. She's just looks beautiful and is scooping up bees, and it gets very hot and sweaty when you're working bees because you generally want your hives in the sun, and you're going to work them when you can. But midday it gets really hot. It can take a while, especially if you have multiple hives to go through. So it's very hot. It's very sweaty. I definitely don't look my best when we're working hives, but yeah, we do fully suit up. I don't enjoy getting stung, particularly if you get stung on the face. We've both experienced this, where you get stung on the face, it swells up really badly, and then you're probably not going to go anywhere for a day or two because you can't see out of one eye. So I just rather not take that risk and put the clothes on.
There are plenty of beekeepers that will work bees in their hives without protective equipment on. And it just depends. I think to become a master beekeeper, I think there's some, level of working the bees without, necessarily having all the equipment on. So it's possible, but it's not something we do. I think it's just our comfortability level. I'm much more comfortable having a veil on and a suit on. And I think we've been talking about maybe going to some thinner gloves because the heavy leather gloves, which, pretty much for the most part are going to protect you from stings. they are bulky, and they can create you. They can give you a false sense of security, and so you can be a little bit more rushed with working your bees, which is never a good thing. So I think that's why, not wearing equipment. The argument is it forces you to focus and go slower and be more methodical and more mindful of what you're doing, because any aggravation to the bees is going to result in you potentially getting stung. So there are plenty of people that work bees without equipment on, and we're just not there yet. Maybe one day, but not yet.
I don't think anybody would ever say otherwise if you decide to continue to wear a veil and
I'm
all
fine with
You still are a beekeeper even with your equipment on.
Yeah. When you have nerves of steel, if you're standing there and you've got a bee crawling up your leg,
Yeah.
and you got
Oh my gracious. There is definitely a little bit of a risk to this hobby, that's for sure. But, you know, again, for somebody who really knows not very much about this, give me an idea of what this is kind of from a workload standpoint, maybe seasonally or maybe from a daily perspective.
Yeah, I think so. The season kind of starts off, in the spring, so early spring. So Christina and I will be looking around March timeframe for the brood cluster to break and the temperatures and the evenings to kind of hit the temperatures where we'd like to see to go in and open a hive. They're clustered up to stay warm, and we don't want to break that up if it's getting too cold at night. So, come in March in our area, we're going to be hitting temperatures that allow us to take a look on them. At that time of the year, we're just looking to make sure that they have enough food left, that they have enough honey stores left, kind of if they've migrated from their lower boxes up to the upper chambers of their boxes. So the season kind of starts then. And then that's when the queen, as it's warming up, the queen's going to start ramping up her egg laying production. She's going to be starting to build her colony up. You start to hit your stride in, I would say, April, May, really hitting your stride with the nectar flow really hitting hard. A lot of the big nectar producers will be coming on. The hive is going to be a buzz. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming in and out of those hives. The foragers going out and getting pollen, especially in the mornings, and the nectar in the afternoon, evenings, bringing it back to the hive. The queen's going to be, at her, maxing out her egg laying production in those kind of late spring, early summer months. The hive's going to be growing to anywhere as much in a strong hive as 60 to even 80,000 plus bees in a strong, late spring, early summer, situation. And when you hit about June and July for us, is when we're looking at harvesting the honey that is ready to go. And when we mean ready, it's capped. The bees have capped it. And once we hit that time frame, Christine and I start going through the boxes that we've set up for the bees to put the honey into, and we'll look for all the frames that are fully capped out, and we'll pull those and do our extractions. And then after that, you kind of get into the time frame that we're at now, the late August coming into September, where you're starting to think about getting your hives in your apiary in general ready for the winter. We may be able to pull some nectar in this fall, to the point where we may actually get more harvestable honey. Right now, where our minds are really set to getting the bees enough honey so that they can survive the winter. Each colony is going to need a full box of honey to make it through the winter, especially if it's a cold, hard winter. So if there's any extra to be had, we'll be looking to get set up to capture that. This is also the time of the year now where we're looking at any pests and diseases in our apiary that we want to get on top of. Like the Varroa Mite is one in particular that is troubling for the honeybees. That as a beekeeper you need to stay on top of and monitor actively and do what you need to do to keep your apiary as low in the Varroa mites as possible. And then as you come really into the fall time frame, it's all about getting your bees, making sure they're healthy and make sure that they're getting plenty of food put away for the winter. And then come the cooler temperatures of November, December, the bees will start to really, they won't leave the hive very often. Although with this area and the temperatures that we tend to get, the bees will come out. I've seen them come out in the upper 40s, definitely in the 50s. So if our daytime highs, which they often are in our winters around here, are in the 40s, upper 40s, 50s, we'll still see bees coming out. Whether that's December or January. If it's a warmer winter, they're out. If it's a colder time, then yeah, you're not going to see too much activity. And then the winter time is just a time to kind of get ready and think about equipment purchases and things that we'll need for next year. And if we're going to redesign labels or if we're going to do something new with the business, that's kind of the time for us to focus on that until the cycle starts over again in the early spring.
Well, I love that kind of seasonal approach to it where, it just lends itself again kind of to this organic feel of what your product really is. We had a question, and I actually was wondering the same thing. Are oak mites an issue for you guys and your bees at all?
Oak mites?
Are you familiar?
No, I've heard of them. I think they've become a topic because of the cicadas, I believe.
Right.
I have not. I'm not familiar with them being a threat to the honeybee. The number one threat that we face right here in Alexandria in our particular apiary is the Varroa Mite. Second to that is probably the hive beetle. Third would probably be the wax moth. A strong colony can protect itself from all of those. But the one that as a beekeeper we are the most concerned about is the Varroa Mite. So we actively monitor them throughout the year. Hive beetles are a little bit easier to control by just using, something as simple as dry Swiffer pads that help trap the beetle in the fibers, and then the bees can basically take care of them from there. But a strong hive will defend itself against wax moths pretty well and hive beetles pretty well. But even a decently strong hive can still suffer from Varroa. So that's the main ones that we in Alexandria and in a lot of places around the country are dealing with. I mean, in the colder climates, they worry less about things like the hive beetles, but everybody that I'm aware of has to deal with the Varroa mites.
Okay, well, we're very relieved, and so are some of our viewers. And if you don't have oak mites in your particular neighborhood, I'm relieved for you. We happen to have a ton of oak trees and oak mites, and I've had to keep my boys indoors sometimes because they're not good. Hopefully, they'll pass quickly for everybody, but that's good that that's not an issue. Talk to me then about your production. You said this is your first year, really, you realized we're going to have way too much honey on our hands. I mean, at what point were you kind of aware of that? And then talk to me a little bit more about specifically Alexandria Honey Company.
So last year, I think we got maybe 50 pounds of honey, and we were really excited about that. And we gave a lot of away. We used a lot. We still had some left over. But it was sort of that thrill of, we've produced this much, how much more could we produce? And so we started moving in that direction, I think, without really giving a whole lot of thought to what we were going to do with all this honey we produced. And so then, this spring, we just realized that if this all works out, it could potentially be quite a bit because, we've had a lot of lessons learned over the years. So things don't always work out and, hives swarm, or you just don't produce honey like you thought you might. So it's one of those situations. We have a certain number of hives and it could go either way. We could have a lot, or we could maybe not have so much. And as it turned out, we're pretty happy with our yield. So far we've harvested about 300 pounds from our hives, which, just to give you a frame of reference, that's roughly 5-gallon buckets. So it's a lot of honey for one family, obviously. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that much. Within an urban environment like this, you can only produce so much because you can only have so many hives on one property. It just, I don't know, I guess early spring, we just said, maybe
literally
we should get ourselves
sitting on the couch and we looked at each other and was like, we have, this many hives. I think we had 6 hives coming out of winter. And, in order to control them from, wanting to swarm, which we've touched on, we had to split all of them. So 6 became 12. And actually, I think at one point we might have had even 13 or 14 because we had some smaller nuke colonies in there. And I think we were just sitting on the couch one night after the kids went to bed, and we looked at each other and was like, well, if all of these hives produce even a little bit of honey, we are going to have way more honey than we could ever use in a lifetime. And that's literally where we looked at each other and said, we're going to have to start selling some of this. And that's kind of where Alexandria Honey Company was born, just in that conversation of, okay, well, and we started doing our research and setting up a company and, websites and everything that goes along with it. And now here we are, in our first year of selling honey.
Yeah, and we sell basically 1 pound bottles and 8-ounce bottles, and we have all the social media sites, and we have a website, and we have a small farmers market presence, and a lot of it's just word of mouth. So we're building up. But yeah, just trying to get the word out there now that we're here and we've got local honey, because that's a hard thing to find. There actually are quite a few beekeepers in Alexandria, more than you might expect. But just with the size of the average lot, most people are only going to be able to produce so much. We have a larger lot than usual, so I think we can probably get a little bit more. But so I think people who are interested in local honey probably have found it, but any one beekeeper is only going to have so much. And I think beekeepers tend to sell out pretty quickly. So we're trying to establish enough of an inventory that we can sort of be a local honey supplier throughout the year, something that will, when people are looking in January, when everyone else is sold out, hopefully we'll still have some honey for those people who are looking for local honey for allergy purposes or just because they like local honey, which is a great reason to buy it. So yeah, and we've talked about expanding maybe into some out yards.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi went a little wonky on me. Please forgive me. But so if I'm interrupting, please forgive. No. But my question is, what would it take? So you did 300 pounds this summer. What are you looking at next summer? What would get you to be like that kind of local supplier level that you could sustain kind of all year round amount of inventory?
Yeah, so this year we'll be tracking our numbers to see how far our 300 or maybe even as much as 500 pounds goes, depending on what we're able to pull off towards the end of the year here off of our hives. We'll see how far that goes. Our particular property, I don't know that we could really push it more than 12, maybe as many as 16 hives is probably going to be about the max that we're going to be able to handle at this property. And we have some interested folks in that would like to have honeybees on their property. So we are looking at doing some expansion next spring into some other folks' yards. That's a great way for us to bring pollinators to somebody who is looking for a pollinator, because maybe they just enjoy looking at the bees, watching the bees. Maybe they have a garden or a small orchard that they're looking to pollinate. So we're going to be looking to expand in that area of putting our bees in kind of other people's yards in the Alexandria, neighborhoods and area where it's safe to do and where people have enough space for them. So that's kind of our way right now is of expanding. We can still go a little bit bigger where we're at here. And potentially leveraging others' property. But it's just Christina and I, we have full-time jobs, so there's only so much we can handle. Working bees is a lot of work, and we go out on a Saturday, and it might be 3 hours that we're out there working the bees. So it's hot, especially this time of the year. The bees can be cranky at times, so it's a lot of work. So I think partly what is going to dictate our expansion is just how much we can handle with having 2 small children and having full-time jobs and everything else that comes with life. So that's also kind of a determining factor as well.
Well, even over the last couple months, I know that you have probably put in so many hours getting the website set up and doing all the research to figure out how to get your honey into people's hands. But if somebody's watching right now tonight and they want to enjoy your hard work and the bees' hard work, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So we are on both Facebook and Instagram at Alexandria Honey Co. And then we also have a website, alexandriahoneyco.squaresite.com. That's also our email, alexandriahoneyco@gmail.com. So any of those avenues are easy ways to find us and get in touch with us if you'd like to buy our honey. And we're located in the west end of Alexandria. So we operate on a pickup basis. So you can order, we'll get it ready for you. We have a bin out front. So then we'll let you know when it's ready. And then you can just stop by and pick it up.
Yeah, we have a pretty contactless system. So, especially with the current world that we live in with the coronavirus and so forth. So, like Christina said, you can go to our website. We take credit card payments through our website. And then it's a porch pickup system. So once we get your order and we process it, we put it out in a little bin that has our logo on it. So it's fairly clearly marked. We send you the address to our house. You come and pick it up. It's as easy as that. Mm-hmm. We also set up, our honey is also carried at the Farmers Market in Cameron Station on
the West End
Farmers Market in Cameron Station every Sunday. I think it runs from 8:30 till 1, I want to say. We ourselves we go there and shop. We don't have a tent right now. Our honey's carried under Made in Alex. They have a tent that they set up every Sunday there, and you can find our honey on their table. We do set up under their tent. We're trying to do 2 or 3 times a year, hopefully, ourselves. So those are the main avenues right now to find us. If you're taking a stroll through Old Town, I believe our honey is being carried right now on the shelves at the Alexandria Welcome or the Visitor Center in Alexandria and Old Town. So there's a few places to find us, but yeah, pretty easy online porch pickup, and everything's pretty contactless.
Well, that's really exciting, you guys. First of all, congratulations. And I know that everybody is probably really excited to have a local source for honey. It's so important. And not only that, but just the environmental impact that this could really have in this area. So a lot of good things happening with this. This is really exciting. So you guys, I'm going to invite all of our watchers to go and follow them on social media. Go check out their website, place an order. Honey it's like the perfect easy teacher gift or just neighbor gift, So that's my recommendation for everybody. But Jason, Christina, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us, and thank you to ZTV.
Yeah. Oh yes. You guys, I'm going to give one more promo. Please go check out Alexandria Honey Company. So cool, and just so much knowledge from these two. And if you love these guys, you're going to love all of our other local makers. You can come to Port City at the end of September. We are going to have an autumn market, and I'm so excited to partner with them again because they're the best. And so this is a little save the date for you right there. Sunday, September 26th from 12 to 6 p.m. We'll be outside of Port City taking over their parking lot. So you guys, lots of ways that we can always support local. That's the best way to do things. So please, whenever possible, make it Alexandria and go be the good news in somebody's life.